While I was working out one morning, I came across this hairy caterpillar while crossing the road, and I had this notion to get some sort of leaf or even a branch, to pick him up and get him off, to keep him from getting ran over. And then something told me to stop. Something told me to let it be. And with this mystic means of reminding me of my own methods and teachings, which was this caterpillar was no different from me and I no different from it. We were both individuals walking our own paths, enduring our own journeys, and it wasn't meant for me to deter him from what he was meant to do. Some can perceive a caterpillar as just being some ordinary insect that has no purpose, has no motive, but I disagree. We all have a particular alignment that brings us to this particular place that has some sort of functionality that connects with everything around us. And within that means, there's a particular purpose, a purpose that justifies that very existence. Meaning it was no reason of me taking him off of his path because only they knew where they were going. This was just a reflection of my own ambitions as to why I do what I do and why I keep going along my very own path. I've come across so many individuals along my lifetime, and there have been a lot that I've had to cut off due to their own selfishness, their own undermining intentions or motives to get whatever they wanted out of me. And initially, the only reasoning of establishing such a bond between myself and them was to help them see what I saw within them. I have this thing of seeing the best in people and wanting to see the best in people. But that is a privilege that is too easily taken for granted, especially when my own efforts exceed their own towards making it easier for them to just come to me rather than depending on themselves, which completely defeats the whole aspect of why I cross paths with them in the first place. For my whole aspiration is just to be an influence in their lives so that way they can find the inspiration within themselves to do the things that they find that may be amazing to them as far as what they've witnessed with just being with me. Me wanting that same influence to be somewhat of a spark for their own self-initiative, to break through their own barriers, to know what it means to fight for what they want and what they desire. But over time, my abundance became something more in their grace of greed, which allowed them to take advantage of something that should be considered sacred, but rather execute themselves in some sort of entitlement on some boy nonsense, or even just utilizing me as a crutch. Something I have nowadays very little tolerance for it interferes with what I have been working so hard to implement within myself. You will come to realize that the more that you put in that work, the less you're willing to deal with the distractions. You will find yourself reaching a point to where certain situations are just completely irrelevant towards your own ambitions and goals. And you will find it effortlessly to get rid of things that do not serve you simply because you don't have time for the low frequency nonsense, especially if your charisma is more towards rising above the occasion and bringing those who are that same frequency up with you from a tribal sense, making your circle smaller and smaller as you progress towards what you define as paradise. The whole meaning of being here, of coming back to this place, is not just to remind yourself of who and what you truly are, but to also undo what you've done in past lifetimes. So that way, when you go to that grand place, all will be in alignment, all will be balanced, all will be set straight as to why you were here in the first place. I'm grateful for crossing paths with this caterpillar because it simply reminded me that I was on the right intersecting crossroads with this individual, and as we crossed paths, it was meant to be a spiritual exchange of not just energy, but more so insight that keeps us calibrated with our inner compass, insight that keeps us focused on our own reasoning of never stopping. I've learned that the best way of doing this is truly liberating and emancipating the mind, breaking the chains that kept you from seeing the very thing that was heavily embedded and instilled as you came into this realm as a child, utilizing the true source of unlimited power, which is your very essence. You can have the willpower, you can have the mental power and the mind power to accomplish whatever you're up against. But there's nothing more inevitable than utilizing you, the soul, and allowing the mind to relearn that very thing that makes you who and what you truly are. keep climbing.